This is part 11 of my series, my saga on building a B&LR narrow gauge 2-foot gauge locomotive for trains rail sim in Gmax. And this is where I got to at the end of part 10. We have the driving bogie animated, made and animated. We have some of the body mesh completed and textured, and got as far as making this cab side here. I'm still not happy with it, so I may change the texture slightly there, but at the moment that's not too bad. Not too bad. So now what I'm going to do is make the cab, at least the outside of the cab, and I'm going to use this plane here as my guide. So I'm going to hide everything else, and I'm going to bring that into, make sure we've got the texture correction on. And so this piece here, the cab front, is my first piece to do. What I'll also do is actually unhide plane number 3, which is the rear view. There it is. In fact, what I'm thinking of doing is using the rear view as the guide. No, it's slightly different. So we'll start with this, and then we'll make the rear section, and it's fairly straightforward. For this one, what I'm going to do is use standard primitives, but splines, and I'm going to start off with a rectangle, which is simply going to give me it's probably deeper than the actual cab, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I can always adjust that, and that gives me 6, 7, 6, 5. Well, I don't like those sort of numbers, so I'm going to go 6, 6, which I think is probably more accurate, and 6, 8. That doesn't really matter at this stage because it's just the depth here. I've not as it perfect, so I'm going to raise that or adjust it to whatever I need. So I've turned that into red, hopefully to make it more visible. It is more or less visible, and convert my rectangle to an editable spline, and make sure these vertices are let's see, Bezier corners. Yes, those are fine. So now with this one's selected, I shall go up to about there, follow the line, and this one, and where were we on here? We were on that guideline there, so I'm going to move the other one over to there, and then up the line. And just then what you've got to do is really bring them more or less into the same. You can do it by eye. Just bring them into the same. That's the sort of line. I know it's pixelated, but you can judge it pretty well. Do this enough times and you'll soon get a hang of it. So there we are. So that gives us the curve of the roof. And now I'm going to do the windows. So again, I'm going to do a rectangular spline, and that's going to be inside. This is the window frame, so I'm going to go inside that slightly. There we are, and 1/6. That looks about what it should be. 5 is the width, so I'm going to go 1 foot 2 inches. Just make it a fraction wider, and just make sure that the positioning is more or less centered. What position are we at? 2 foot and 1/3 of an inch. Don't like that, so I'm going to move it over there. And then what I'm going to do is corner radius, because these are curved corners. Let's just start cranking up the corner radius. Let's make that a colour that we can see. There we are, yellow. I think that's about a 2 inch, so we'll take that up. I don't know why it increments in such odd amounts, but they all do. So that's going to be just the hole that's going to provide the window, and clone this and move it over to the positive over here. So even though it's not lining up on there, it's the same as this. So as it's bilaterally symmetrical, you can actually see that the dome and the chimney are not centered over the center line. But this will be. You've just got to adjust your model to, as it were, half of the shape there. Oops. I'm just wondering why that was the case. I wonder if it's actually because if I check the way in which this has been done, the way I've done this, and I just zoom in here, I think I'm a tad over here, then I should be closer in here. It should be more this way, so I'll take it over a little bit. And you can see that has the effect of centering the texture on the center line. So let's check our windows again, because they may not be correct. The position is wrong. So let's move those over. I think that's better. Okay, so it's an extra inch, and it's an extra inch there. 1 inch. Okay, now I'm also going to take a clone like that, and then I'm going to convert these to editable splines. Okay, and then let's just go to wireframe, and I'm going to attach those splines to my cab front, which is fairly straightforward. And then if we look down here, we can see that the whole thing's attached, and now we can extrude that, and I'm going to extrude it about 2 inches. Now that uses a lot of polys because of all of these in the middle here, and we're actually going to lose all of those plus all of these here. We're going to be left with the front face and the inside face of the cab there, because all the other space, all the other edges are actually going to be concealed by other meshes, and the other mesh, the key other mesh, is going to be this one here, the clone that we took. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just unselect that for a moment, move that back to 2'1". Now there's various ways you can do this, because what I'm going to do is make the frame, the window frame, and for this I'm going to use the what do you call that tool? The uniform scaling tool. You can alter it by adjusting the radius, but frankly I find this quicker. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chance it, and I'm going to make that a little bit bigger there, and I think it needs to open a bit, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone it and bring it back there, and what I'm actually looking at is this position here, that there and there, and I'm not worrying about here that it's slightly different, because the next thing I'm going to do is to make that an editable spline, and let's see all the vertices. Yes, okay, but now what I want to do is to bring it in on the x-axis, the width axis, and I hope that's not going to make too much of a mess of the curves. Oops, wrong way. Okay, that's alright. And then this one, editable spline, I'm just going to take it out a fraction. The reason why I wanted to do that was to try and keep these curves in proportion. They're not quite. Still wondering whether to keep that or not. If I go back, how many times will it let me go back? Not very many. No, I think I'm stuck with that now. Yeah. Let's have a look. Right, okay, so the way to have a quick look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this one, attach them together, and I'm going to extrude them, and this time I'm going to extrude them 3 inches, not 2 inches. Yeah. So that gives us our window frames, and let's just make everything centered up. So we'll center that, and we'll center this. Okay, and we'll just make sure that this is not in that way, in that way. There we are, so it's overlapping. Now that means that this one here, which is going to be quite a lot of polys, 256 polys, so I might as well just collapse that all down. By collapsing it down, you reduce the number of polys quite significantly. So I think you're simplifying it here. I've got 300 polys. Well, what I'm going to do there is I'm going to reduce it down to an editable poly, and now what I'm going to do is delete a whole load of them. So we've got 76 at the moment, and I'm going to come in, and what I'm doing is I'm selecting, because I've got the whole thing selected and I'm just selecting polygons, it's selected all the ones on, let's see, I deleted everything except the front and back face, and it's reduced it down from 76 polygons to 2. It's not bad. Now we're stuck with all these polygons here on the window frame, because we need them, because they extend both inside and outside the cab. They're hiding the fact that there's no polys on there. So let's now, got that centered, so now let's clone that. Okay, and let's move it over to minus. Here we are, there's our other window. Okay. Let's have a quick look at the back. I think they're the same at the back. So I should have done that at the same time. Now I've got to do it all again. That's clever. Before I converted those to polys, I should have done the back as well. But there you go, you learn these things as you go. You realise you've made a mess. Never mind. But what I am going to do is use this as a guide to make this. So essentially I've got to do again what I did earlier, which is a bit daft, but there you go. That's what happens when you muck about like this. So I'm going to recreate the red. So let's go back to our rectangle, and let's go whatever width that was. What was it, height and width? It was 1.6 by, what was it, 1.2. Looks right. Just move it into position. What I can actually do is, because I've got that frame, make sure it's centered. Yes, I can center my new one on that. Make it all, yeah. Okay, and now we want to give that rectangle a 2-inch corner radius, which is what we did before. There we are, and it's duplicated it. So edit. No, I'm not going to do that just yet. What I'm going to do, because this is done on the 0, so I'm actually stacking up, everything's being stacked up on the same coordinate. So first thing I need to do, one of the things I need to do is pick up, make sure I get the right one, the yellow, and that one, and that one. Let's group them together, move them one way as always. There we are, and there's our one we've just done. So next step is to pick up our spline that we just made. It's not group, there it is. Edit, clone, and 2.1, take out the minus, brings it over to the right, and now we can swing round. There's our back. So I'm going to hide that, and for the back I need to be able to see that in the other direction. So we'll just rotate that around, make sure it's centered first of all, yes. It's on the 0. Okay, now we can rotate it 180 degrees, there we are. And if we have a look here, that's the back. So it's quite different. Looks different to the front of the cab. The window's in a different place. So let's hide that group, and let's save everything. And ostensibly these windows are the same size. They don't look the same size to me. No way. So let's just take them down a bit. Certainly not the same position. Well, the height seems to be the same. The width is definitely less. So let's take that down. Let's take it down to 1 foot. See how that looks. It's probably a little strong. Let's stick an extra ½ inch in there. There are so many things I'd like Gmax to do differently, but I guess I can whistle for that. So I'm going to clone that one up, okay, and I'm not going to worry about all the odds and ends here. It looks like it should have been 1 foot 8. I'm just going to duplicate it over there. Get rid of that one. And again, it looks like we're not on the center line, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust this here. Let's just go in a bit. I think I'm in my initial setup. And what I'm doing is centering this. So we're on the center line by stretching this over a bit. So we're centered there, but we're not centered on the coupling. Don't like that very much. Well, I'm going to leave it like that, I think. Okay, so let's go back in and check our windows. Obviously wrong now. So we'll move that over. One foot 9.5, we'll say. Yeah. And do the same for this. 9.5. I'm sure Mr. Churchwood would have had kittens trying to deal with this. So, now, still in splines. Let's make our rectangle. Okay. And let's have a look in wireframe. I'm going to, on the hide, think it's the last group here. There it is. Because what I want to do is to make that, to me, doesn't look like that's centered. No, it's not. So let's just make sure the group is centered. Yeah, it's half an inch out. Just going to ungroup that a minute. Check these. 21601. Don't like that one bit. Let's move that to there. Make sure that that's centered. I'm working on the front of the cab here. So it's not right. Yeah, definitely not right. So now what I'm going to do is what I should have done earlier on, is I'm actually going to make sure that the cab looks, I could end up redoing the cab because they look okay. These are definitely wrong. Now what I'm going to try and do is just move these polys. I'm hoping it's not going to make a problem when I look at the actual mesh. Sometimes it will distort the texturing if you do that sort of thing. Yeah, you got a bit of a, you can see a bit of it here actually. If I can get the rotation right. There's a diagonal across there. There's obviously something going on in there, which I think once I texture it will become apparent. So I'm going to make that piece again. It was wrong. I made it wrong. But because I've already started making other splines, etc., then I'm going to use those to help speed it up. So this, I'm going to take a clone of this one. So I'm duplicating a lot of work here, which I should have sorted beforehand. And this should be 1'2". Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to position it using this. And that should have brought it forward. Yeah, so it's in amongst there. Okay, and then I'm going to give this another colour. Let's make it blue to differentiate it. This is the spline. I'm going to make that into a spline. And let's move it over first. Can I make it? Can I? Yeah, rectangle. It's wrong, isn't it? It should be 6'4". No, that's the height. So I'm trying to remember what size it was. Let's have a look. 6'6". That looks right. I'm positioning it over this red one here. So if it's 6'6", let's make sure it's centered. And let's make sure it's positioned correctly. And then, excuse me, edges full spline, vertices, we're going to do all that again. Let's make this X and Y. And it was this one I was in. I'm going to lift that up to about there. I'm going to lift that up. Doesn't need to be that high. Down. I'm trying to replicate what I had before, which would have been sensible. I'd probably do it right in the first place. I know I've got that in is correct. I'm still going to work on this as the back, but this is just a way of getting myself out of a hole. I'm going to clone that a bit back, and then I need to pick up. I can hide that. First of all, we'll pick up window frames and let's group it. Okay, and hide it, and then I'm going to line that up. Make sure we know where we're going. X we don't want, Y we want. Okay, and that should be at 2.16. Okay. And then with it still selected, clone. Okay. Oops, hang on, there it is. Take it over, and now we've got our front of the cab yet again. So just to make sure I know that it's the, I should make that an invisible spline. Ditto this one, and I shall attach the other one and the outside, and then I shall extrude it 2 inches. I think that's just an artifact. I don't think it will cause a problem. I've got it there. Let's just check that. I don't think it's going to show any problems. You see, it's quite big. Let's make it dirty grey. There we are. I think that's okay. And just to finish it off, there it is up there. Let's collapse the whole thing down to a poly and censor everything, and then delete the polys we don't need, which is quite a lot. Making sure I don't touch the 2 sides, the front and back, and I delete that. And unhide the last group I made, which is that one. And let's give this a distinctive colour so I can pick it up, make it sort of green. And I'm going to centre it. Okay, and make sure I select the group. Ungroup, and then select the red one, there it is, and then I can just turn that into a group again. And there's the front of the cab, belatedly redone. I know I've got a texture and other things, but, and it does at least mean that that is correct, because that's what I cloned it from. Okay, let's get back to making the back. Back to the back. Okay, so we've got a variations there, so I'm going to do that separately. Everything else is a detail added in. Make sure I've got the windows right, yes. Yeah, well, I'm working from this one, and that's going to be a clone of it, so that looks okay. Let's make sure we got the position right. 1.95, 1.95. Okay, let's do this one. So again, I'm going to do a rectangle. And not too worried about that. What I'm going to do now is adjust that corner radius, bring it right down. There we are. Okay, and then if I convert this to an editable spline, and I've got vertices, then I'm going to select 2 of them and break them. And then I'm going to select segments and delete the segments I don't need. Okay, let's do that in wireframe and just check. I haven't got rid of everything. Okay, position isn't too bad. That's the wrong way, of course, as always, every time, without fail. Center that up, and side position 3. No, that doesn't really matter. Clone it, okay, and then rotate it. Don't mirror. Don't use it the wrong way, of course. Just take it around 180 degrees, and that's our insets, should be. Pretty much. Let's go back to wireframe. Make sure our go to vertices, and we're going to refine. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. Still not precisely there. Anyway, I should stick one in there. And one over here. And then looking at segments, I don't want to refine anymore. Looking at segments, I can take out that one and that one, and you can see where I'm going with this. I just want to make sure that this is correctly positioned. I'm just looking down here. So let's have a look at this one. 32 is that. 0.006. Okay, right. Let's pick up our CAD side and let's attach that and that and that. Before we attach the other one, I'll take a clone of this. So I'm going to need that for the window frames. So let's attach the last one. And then you've got it extrude. Oops, that's no good. And the reason why it's no good is because I haven't joined up all the vertices. So back to this one and welded them together. So it's that one there and that one there. And you can see the little handlers. There's 4 there because there's 2 points. Now there's just 2 there because there's 1 point. Weld. There we are. That should be good. And now try extrude. Oh, there we are. We got our CAD back. Thank you. And I'm just going to estimate what I need to do for the window frame. Right in and slide that over so that's correctly positioned, and now we're going to do the old business with the scaling. Take that down a bit and take it clean up a bit, and then side to side scaling. That's a fraction. And the inner one just that should do it. Okay, so let's convert that to a spline. Let's convert that to a spline. And let's attach the inner one, and this time we'll extrude it 3 inches, and it was, let's have a quick look. Okay, so the positions, vertical positions aren't right yet. Where are we? We want to go up to here, don't we? There it is. Sol. What's that? Oh, I see. This when I made this spline, I didn't have them all in line. Oh joy. Cinnamon. One of my more brilliant efforts. Pick up the polys and move them. When you do things wrong, which I've done several things wrong in this session, you find workarounds to either correct it or you realise you've got to do it again. And that's essentially what I'm doing here. What I can do is I can remove the polys on the inside of the window hole there because it's going to be hidden by the frame. So, right, there we are. That's odd. Let me pick up. This is a poly on the roof. Okay, there's a poly on that edge there. We want to keep the sides here, but we want to lose the top, so tops and bottoms. So with the other one it was easy because I could just work through. All of them are going to be lost, but here I've got to pick these up individually to lose those, and I want to keep the side ones. Well, I can lose the bottom one as well. It's just a single poly, but it's always worth taking out every unnecessary poly. Let's just put that down. Yep. And now I should be able to just get in. I'm coming down this way over here. There we are. And I can delete those. And I can delete those. Okay, and I can make sure that this is centered to the object. And so is this one. And then I can just use that to align the window frame, and then I'm just going to clone that and move it along. There we are. So let's have a quick look. Okay, and we've got that those nice cutouts there in the side of the cab. So let's make a group of that. Group. Okay, let's unhide everything, and now let's move them into position. So there's our cab back. Just drag it over, and our cab front should be somewhere right up here, and I can't see it because there's no side to it, because that's going to get hidden, I hope. Yeah, of course it is. So let's move that over until it meets the side of this. That's where it goes, and it's hidden because I'm going to have that butting against it, the cab side there. So let's have a look at this, and make sure they're in the correct position. Look okay, don't they? Yeah, it's beginning to come together. It's quite a nice logo actually. Well, all logos are nice logos, but some are nicer than others. Okay. So the only other thing I'm going to do now in this session is I'm going to make the cab roof across the top there, and for that I'm going to hide everything, hide the unselected. I'm going to save everything first. Save as. cube, and I like to oops, don't need that. I like to make the cab roof by making a rectangle. A box, not a rectangle. And let's have a look. Let's unhide one of the planes. It doesn't really matter which of the end ones. Let's unhide plane 3. Okay. So I actually took that to the top of the roof. Well, I'm gonna obscure some of that very slightly. So I've got a rectangle there. Let's have a look at that. It's 6'7". Let's just center that. I think that's okay. I'm not going to worry about the width at the moment, but what I am going to do is bring in some segments, and it's always along. There they are. And I want 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 should do it. I always tend to have an odd number because, well, we'll see why in a moment. I'm going to reduce the width down to about 1 inch. There we are, and bring the roof down so it's just over the curve that I've done there, so it's actually going to be embedded into it. And now I'm going to edit the mesh. I've not reduced it to a poly yet. First thing is pick up everything apart from the 2 centers and bring it down. And deselect these 2, bring it down, and finally, and I always like to have a little overhang at each side. Okay, so we're way off position, so let's unhide another group. And let's have a look in the wireframe. So I'll pick up the sides of our cab there and position the roof. Let's move it over. Come on, the roof. Let's be having ya. Bit of an overhang. That's the way I like it. Well, I'll also do to see this one first, and then X. Just enough. Should do the trick. Let's reduce the whole thing down to a poly and center everything up. Make sure it's all okay, and let's have a look with the rest of it. And you can see now we're beginning to get there. Okay, now I'm going to put the other side, this piece over, make sure it's centered, get the position right, edit, clone, okay, and I'm going to position it over the other side, my clone. Obviously I've got to texture this, so select that face, edit. And you'll see here that what I've actually done is I've actually altered the texture slightly. I've added a very slight reflection to it, because otherwise it'd be quite dull when I get it into trains. So there's our texture. That's the one. And that's it down there, the other one. So first of all, I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to try and position it so that it's this, oops. So it's positioned positioned in the same way as the other side. So still don't like this texture. This positioning of this needs work. I'm going to leave it like that because otherwise it's going to take forever. I'm tempted, I'm thinking I'm going to go back and redo that whole piece much more accurately, because I think it's quite an important image and I don't want to, there's no point getting it wrong, just for the sake of a bit of work, put a bit of work in. Okay, so there we are. I guess the next thing I've got to do is to make the frames and the running plate here. Bring it together. But there we are, that's it for, so I've made the cab up. You've seen various techniques there. I'm not worrying about texturing all those. I will come back to them and texture them, and as I say, I'm thinking of redrawing this, but you can see you're really beginning to get the feel that it's a three-dimensional actual locomotive now, and some stage I've got to make the front bogie and all the couplings and everything like that, but that's the next stage, and so I'm going to leave it there. If you enjoyed the video, found it helpful at all, please leave a comment or give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, it's free, there's no obligation. I don't know who you are, you don't get emails from me or anything else. It just encourages me to carry on doing this, and eventually one day we're going to see the end result of this series as this little locomotive steams its way on a 3-foot gauge line in Trains Railway Simulator. So there we are, that's the end of this session.